Join spiritual feminist and empowerment coach Joni Advent Maher for Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. Listen in for intimate conversations about money, transformation, and feminine sovereignty. And now, your host, Joni Advent Maher.
Welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joni Advent Maher, mystic, spiritual midwife, and a transformational guide. Happy anniversary. So happy to be with you and to be celebrating 3 years of Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. And in honor of the anniversary, I want to share some wisdom that I've been receiving lately. So last week, I was at the Women Speak International Festival in Sedona, teaching on trusting your voice and speaking spontaneously. It was a transformative and power-packed weekend. I taught the workshop 3 times, and each time was a little bit different. And Saturday was also a full moon. So it was quite intense, and I felt like the volume was being turned up on my own transformational work. And I spent the day in tears, not boo-hooing tears, just a soft, gentle stream of tears. And leading up to that, I had quite a bit of intensity in some of my relationships. And it just felt like I was in the press, in the kind of that pressure where you're being pushed from both sides and being taken to a new state of being. And here's what came out the other side. What I was shown during this time of kind of being in the crucible of change was I was being shown some of the ways that I have, given my power away, but mostly given my power away by not really valuing or honoring or owning the gift of my nature. I was seeing others as more capable or valuable or together or strong, more competent. And I realized that I was being shown through some of my relationships ways that I had devalued my nature, my feminine nature in particular. And for most of us, well, for all of us, we are living, well, I'm not going to make assumptions for other places, but here in the States and in our Western culture, there is so much value placed both on the mind and our reasoning capacity, even on the whole issue of science over spirit. And because I have always been, as I said, I'm a mystic and a spiritual midwife, because I have always been more oriented to lead life through my heart as opposed to my reasoning or my will, to live life through my heart, to be tuned in to spirit, and also to be tuned in to the unseen realms. I learned very early on that those things were not the preferred way of being in the world. B, came to the conclusion that they were not as valuable as being able to do the hold your shit together, be academically smart of approach to life. So I divorced myself really early on from my essential nature. And I began to feel not enough, not good enough, like I didn't measure up. And I'm coming to realize that so much of that was the prevailing culture, both in my family, in my church, certainly in the larger collective of my country and our culture, that my wiring was seen as faulty. And maybe you've experienced that as well. Maybe there's a way in which you have received the message that who you are is flawed or faulty in some way, that it goes against some prevailing culture within your family or your community or your larger culture. And I came to realize this weekend at a new level, in a new way, the value and the importance of owning and embracing the truth of who we are. And for me, owning and embracing the truth of who I am. And I was able to spend some time with women who were able to mirror for me who I am in terms of my gifts and my wisdom and the value that that brings to them in their life and to others in their life. I got to meet lots of women, and as I showed up authentically as myself, even in this more full way, valuing my emotional nature, valuing my spiritual connection, and not looking to my sisters who maybe are more linear or just thinking types. If you're looking at the Myers-Briggs, I am not a thinking type. I am an intuitive feeling type, and maybe you are as well. And I know that I have often looked at my sisters and even brothers who were thinking types and saw them as having more value because that's what was reinforced all around me from a very young age. And I didn't realize until just last week how subtle that programming went inside of me. I was recognizing the ways that I was giving my power away to people outside of myself who I saw as, again, this having it all together. So I'm sharing this with you today because I believe there is value in recognizing that to the extent we feel not enough, to the extent we have an inner critic that is telling us we're not doing it right or we're not okay, to that extent there is still a place inside where we are not wholly valuing or embracing our true essential nature. So whether it's a matter of being too much or not enough, there is some, what is the word I'm looking for? It's current. There is a current that still exists within you that is not loving and embracing or honoring who you are. So the gift that I received, felt like I got this message both from my higher self and from spirit that was something like this: own it, honor it, and bring it. So own it to the extent of really owning who I am, and for you, owning who you are, owning your essential nature, whatever that is. Maybe it's deeply sensitive and emotional and intuitive. Or maybe you are one of those folks who was wired differently and you have a lot of reasoning capacity, and you think with this brilliant brain of yours. Not that those of us that are intuitive and feeling can't have brilliant brains, but we just use them differently. But to own it, like own who you are, and then honor that. Don't just own it, but honor it. Like recognize this is your sacred essence. This is the divine expressing through you in this unique way, in this unique combination. And then finally, bring it on, bring it out into the world. This is what the world needs from you. This is why you came in this time, in this place, with your unique personality, gifts, and wisdom, for you to bring it. Because nowhere else on the planet, nowhere else in the universe, do we have the capacity to receive what you have to bring. So I think about the rainforests, and I think about the planet and all the species that are available to us. And I know that there are researchers and scientists who are still discovering ways that these unique species in the middle of the rainforest can be used to support our well-being as a planet. And I think the same is true for each of us, and the same is true for you, that you are a unique species. You are a unique essence that does have the potential to be a game changer for the collective just by showing up, by owning it, by honoring it, and by bringing it into your life. And I don't mean you have to be this big movement maker, this big creator of a movement, although that may be your calling. But even just in your life, even in your relationships, in your community, wherever the case may be, you showing up fully in your essence changes the fabric, the whole matrix, the whole fabric of the cosmos. It changes the whole fabric of the human collective field. So I want to encourage you to get a little more risky and to get a little more edgy with this and to be more daring in terms of bringing yourself out. And it may begin with those who can see you and who can reflect back to you the beauty of who you are and the gorgeousness of your essence. Find those women, find those people, find those who can do that. And then I encourage you to move through your life with the question, how can I show up in this situation even more fully as myself? How can I bring even more of me to this situation? So as I bring this to a close, I want to just share with you one of the ways that this came home to me as I was at the festival. So there were women who had trained and created their own signature talks. And the thing that kept coming through time and time again, the talks that were the most impactful and that really shook my foundation were the times when these women were just purely, unapologetically showing up as themselves and showing up as what they had to bring to life. And as I was teaching the workshop on trusting your voice, I came to recognize at an even deeper level to trust our voice requires that we trust ourselves, that we trust that there is this inner being, this inner wisdom, this inner self that is a deeper version, that it's not at the level of the mind. The mind is really the servant to this deeper reservoir of wisdom and of truth. And that to allow ourselves to trust that, again, goes back to honoring it, to seeing its value. And if you haven't had that reflected back to you, it's worth finding those who can do that reflection for you, who can see you and show you the value of that. That is part of what I received this weekend. So as we bring this to a close, I want to thank you for being here, for sharing this journey over the last 3 years with me, and for being a leader in your own life by doing your own personal growth work and transformation, and by allowing that to ripple out into your life and community. And I want to share with you one final piece, which is to say that recently I have created a chrysalis community and a mentorship program for women like you who know that they have unique and special wisdom that they're ready to develop further and put out into the world as their life's work. It's for you if you could use a supportive, safe community to have those that can reflect back to you your gifts and wisdom to help you clarify and see what the optimal direction is, the optimal form is for your sacred work. And it's a place to do that inner work on the valuing of yourself, the valuing of what you bring. So if this is something that speaks to you, if you feel a deep yearning to share the depth of your wisdom and experience in the world with more impact and to create more prosperity from that, I would love to have you join us. You can actually join free for 7 days, and you can access all the details and information for this via the link in the session notes. It's a safe space where you will get all the support and structure you need to get started if this is your year to bring out your life's work. So, beloved, as we close, I want to remind you to own it, to honor it, and to bring it. And as always, to trust what your heart knows.
Thanks for listening to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow with Joni Advent Maher. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share our podcast with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review our podcast at iTunes.